For decades, the world has operated under a clear assumption about the Middle East's military balance. Israel was the technological titan, a nation whose military prowess was seemingly insurmountable. Its air defense systems, particularly the famed Iron Dome, were seen as a near-perfect shield, capable of swatting away any threat with digital precision. This belief in Israeli invincibility was a cornerstone of regional stability, a deterrent that kept adversaries at bay. Iran, by contrast, was often portrayed as a nation led by clerics, its military capabilities viewed with some skepticism, considered more bluster than genuine threat. The narrative was simple: Israel possessed the future of warfare, while Iran was stuck in the past. This long-held perception was profoundly shaken by recent events. The conflict, which has now raged for 5 days, began with a stunning display of Iranian military capability that caught many observers off guard. Iran unleashed a massive barrage of missiles aimed at key Israeli cities including Tel Aviv and military installations. The scale and sophistication of the attack were far beyond what most analysts believed Iran could orchestrate. As Israeli strikes targeted Tehran, even reportedly assassinating a high-ranking military chief, Ali Shadmani, Iran's retaliatory strikes continued with ferocious intensity. This was not a minor skirmish. It was a direct, state-to-state confrontation that challenged the very foundations of Israel's perceived military supremacy. The psychological impact of Iran's assault has been as significant as the physical damage. The constant wail of air raid sirens and the sight of missiles streaking across the night sky brought the reality of war to Israeli citizens in a way they had not experienced in generations. The conflict has resulted in significant casualties on both sides, with Iran reporting over 220 civilians killed and Israel citing at least 24 fatalities from the missile attacks. The myth of a perfectly protected homeland began to crumble under the weight of this sustained bombardment, forcing a painful reassessment of Israeli security and its defensive doctrines. The world watched as the seemingly impenetrable shield was not only tested, but visibly strained. The events have demonstrated that technological superiority alone does not guarantee security. While Israel's defense systems, including the Iron Dome, did intercept a significant number of projectiles, even showing unexpected effectiveness against ballistic missiles, they were not infallible. The sheer volume of the attack was designed to overwhelm these defenses, and to a degree, it succeeded. The conflict has now entered a brutal war of attrition. Reports from intelligence sources suggest that if the current pace of attacks continues, Israel's missile defense capabilities could be exhausted within 10 to 12 days. This vulnerability has shattered the image of absolute technological dominance and introduced a new, more dangerous variable into the regional power equation. Iran's military strategy was not a simple act of brute force. It was a meticulously planned and layered operation designed to exploit the weaknesses of Israel's vaunted air defense network. The plan appeared to involve a multi-pronged approach, beginning with waves of simpler, less sophisticated rockets and drones. The purpose of this initial assault was clear: to saturate and exhaust Israel's defensive systems, forcing them to expend valuable interceptor missiles on lower-tier threats. This tactic, known as a saturation attack, is a classic military strategy aimed at overwhelming an opponent's defenses before the main, more critical strike is launched. It was a patient, calculated, and ultimately effective opening move. Once the initial waves had taxed the Iron Dome and other defensive layers, Iran unleashed its more advanced and powerful weaponry. Sophisticated ballistic and cruise missiles were launched in subsequent waves, targeting strategic locations deep within Israeli territory. These weapons, harder to intercept and carrying more destructive payloads, were aimed at military intelligence centers, air bases, and key infrastructure. The timing of these attacks, often under the cover of darkness, further complicated Israel's response. This layered strategy demonstrated a level of military sophistication and coordination from Iran that has forced a global re-evaluation of its offensive capabilities, proving they are a force to be reckoned with. The pressure on Israel's defense systems was immense, leading to struggles and even reported malfunctions. Under the strain of hundreds of incoming projectiles, the systems became overwhelmed. There were even tragic reports of friendly fire incidents, a grim testament to the chaos and confusion of a large-scale missile war. The sheer number of threats stretched resources thin, compelling Israeli forces to ration their defensive munitions. While Israel claims to have eliminated about a third of Iran's missile launchers through its own air campaign, The relentless nature of the Iranian attacks has shown that even the world's most advanced defenses have a breaking point when faced with a sufficiently determined and well-equipped adversary. Adding another dimension to its strategy, Iran boldly claimed to have achieved a degree of air superiority over Israeli airspace, a stunning assertion against a nation famous for its powerful air force. While Israel's own military countered by claiming it had achieved aerial superiority over Tehran with its fighter jets, the narrative battle was just as fierce as the physical one. Iran's ability to project power and challenge Israeli dominance in its own skies, even if disputed, represented a significant propaganda victory. It signaled to the world that the old rules no longer applied and that Iran was capable of contesting every domain of modern warfare, from the ground to the skies above. The conflict is no longer a bilateral affair between Iran and Israel. A coalition of actors, often described as Iran's axis of resistance, has begun to join the fray, widening the geographic scope and complexity of the crisis. Militant groups in Yemen and even fighters from Afghanistan have reportedly aligned with Iran, launching their own attacks and signaling a broader, ideologically motivated front against Israel. Perhaps most alarmingly, reports suggest the involvement of North Korea, a nation with its own advanced missile technology. This expanding alliance provides Iran with strategic depth, allowing it to threaten Israel from multiple directions and further strain its already taxed defensive resources. This escalation has placed the United States in an incredibly difficult position. President Trump faces a monumental decision: whether to commit American forces to the conflict, thereby entering a new and unpredictable war in the Middle East, or to remain on the sidelines. Joining the fight would risk dragging Washington into a protracted and costly conflict, yet it also presents the temptation of potentially eliminating Iran's nuclear program once and for all. For now, the United States has adopted a cautious stance, providing support to Israel but hesitating to engage in direct military action against Iran. Trump has publicly stated that Iran is not winning this war and has alluded to back-channel messages from Tehran seeking to de-escalate, adding a layer of complex diplomacy to the ongoing military confrontation. The international community is responding with alarm, with nations around the world urging restraint and scrambling to protect their citizens. Countries like Ukraine, China, and South Korea have issued advisories urging their nationals to leave both Israel and Iran due to the significant deterioration of the security situation. Evacuations are already underway, with hundreds of foreign nationals, including Americans and Europeans, crossing from Iran into neighboring countries like Azerbaijan. These diplomatic maneuvers and travel warnings underscore the global recognition that the conflict has the potential to spiral into a much larger regional or even global crisis, with devastating humanitarian and economic consequences. The widening conflict fundamentally alters the strategic calculus for all involved. For Israel, it means facing a multi-front war against a coordinated network of adversaries, a nightmare scenario for its military planners. For Iran, it is a demonstration of its influence and its ability to rally regional allies to its cause. For the United States and other world powers, it is a stark reminder of the volatility of the Middle East and the limits of their ability to control events. The involvement of new state and non-state actors transforms the crisis from a localized dispute into a systemic challenge to the existing international order, raising the stakes for everyone. The most profound consequence of this conflict may be the complete upending of long-held perceptions about power in the Middle East. Israel's image of untouchable military and technological supremacy has been seriously questioned. For the first time, a regional adversary has demonstrated the capacity to inflict significant pain and sow widespread fear within Israel's borders, bypassing its legendary defenses. This shift is not lost on global leaders or the public. The world is witnessing the erosion of an aura of invincibility that has defined Israeli security policy for over half a century. The psychological barrier has been broken, and the region will never look the same. The conflict is reshaping the geopolitical landscape in real time. Iran, long isolated and sanctioned, has emerged as a formidable military power capable of challenging a top-tier Western-backed state. Its missile program, once dismissed by some as second-rate, has proven its effectiveness. This newfound status will embolden its allies and may cause neutral nations in the region to reconsider their alignments. The balance of power, once heavily tilted in Israel's favor, is now being recalibrated. This new reality forces a re-evaluation of everything from diplomatic strategies to military doctrines across the region, and in capitals from Washington to Moscow. As the world watches with bated breath, the situation remains incredibly dangerous. Both sides have demonstrated a willingness to absorb and inflict significant damage, raising the specter of further escalation. With Iran's missile attacks reportedly declining in frequency as Israeli airstrikes take their toll, there is a chance for de-escalation. However, with Iranian officials having initially planned for a much larger volley of missiles, the potential for another massive strike remains. The presence of foreign fighters and the involvement of other nations mean that a single miscalculation could easily ignite a wider conflagration, pulling in global powers and destabilizing the entire international system. Ultimately, this moment represents a critical turning point for the Middle East. The old certainties have vanished, replaced by a volatile and unpredictable new era. The conflict has not only tested military hardware, but has also shattered foundational myths about power and security. It has exposed vulnerabilities, created new alliances, and demonstrated that the path to regional dominance is no longer clear-cut. Why does this all feel more dangerous than ever? Because the established rules of deterrence have broken down, and no one is quite sure what the new rules will be. The world is watching closely because the future of this volatile region, and perhaps global peace itself, hangs precariously in the balance.